Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are so glad that you are here and able to join us for tonight's GFPD webinar, GFPD Care in Action, What Bereaved Parents Wish You Knew. I'm Katie Sacker, Director of Family Programs here at the GFPD, and tonight I'll be co-moderating with Sarah Heath, mom to GFPD warrior Molly Kate, and also my co-facilitator on the GFPD Community Advisory Council. Together, we will be guiding you through tonight's webinar, where you will hear directly from bereaved parents and gain insights and practical guidance through a new resource designed to help friends, family, and communities show up with care after unimaginable loss. We will be sharing and discussing the new resource with our amazing panelists this evening, and we will also take time to answer your questions. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the webinar. You can submit your questions using the Q&A button, or you can use the chat box.
Good evening and welcome. I'm your co-moderator, Sarah Heath. Tonight, our webinar objectives are to increase and improve support for bereaved parents, normalize discomfort while fostering confident compassion, transform discomfort into connection, educate and raise awareness about grief and bereavement support, and launch a new resource created for bereaved parents by bereaved parents. Now let's take a moment to meet our incredible parent panel. Each of these parents has generously agreed to share their experiences and insights with us, helping everyone here tonight better understand and provide support for bereaved parents. We'll start by introducing Eddie Day. Eddie lives in Nashville, Tennessee with his wife, Jennifer. In July 2023, they lost their daughter, Anna Violet, to a peroxisomal biogenesis disorder, Zellweger spectrum disorder, at the age of 4. Since Anna's diagnosis at just 2 months old, Eddie has been a committed advocate for the rare disease community, engaging at the local, state, and federal levels. As a courageous Parents Network parent champion, Eddie shares his family story to support and empower other parents navigating serious pediatric illness. Through his work with the GFPD, he plays an integral role on the logistics committee and provides support to families, including co-facilitating virtual support events for those who are bereaved, while also raising awareness and critical funds for research. Thank you for being with us tonight, Eddie.
Next, we have Jamie Usher. Jamie is a special educator with 10 years of experience supporting students with a wide range of needs. She holds a master's in education from Lesley University and is passionate about inclusive education and empowering families as partners in the special education process. Jamie became connected to the GFPD after her son, Lincoln, was diagnosed with a peroxisomal disorder and has been she's been an active advocate since then. Since losing Lincoln in 2024, Jamie and her husband have found purpose in honoring his memory by giving back to families who are walking similar paths. She lives in Massachusetts with her dog and her husband and is committed to supporting families navigating rare disease and complex medical journeys, as well as improving resources and connection for fellow bereaved parents. Jamie, thank you for being here to share with us this evening.
Our next panelist is Megan Cody. Megan is the Family and Network Engagement Specialist at the National Center on Deafblindness. She brings over 30 years of experience in the field of special education, including work as a classroom teacher, state-funded grants, teaching graduate coursework, and directing the Kansas Deafblind Project. A Kansas native, Megan earned her master's degree in severe multiple disabilities with deafblindness at the University of Kansas. Throughout her career, Megan has been passionate about creating meaningful inclusion for children with special needs and elevating family voice. She is a bereaved parent to her son, Ben, who died from cancer at the age of 8 years old. Drawing on both her own experience and her professional training, she also provides compassionate support to families navigating loss. Megan and her husband are parents to 3 amazing children and currently reside in Kansas. Megan, thank you for all you do and for being here to share this evening.
To complete our incredible panel, we have Patty Del Sorbo. Patty lives near Dayton, Ohio with her husband Tony, daughter Anna, and son Anthony. She is the mother to two children diagnosed with Zellweger spectrum disorder. Her first child, Christopher, died at 4 months and 16 days due to a brain bleed. It wasn't until Anna was diagnosed with ZSD at age 1 that doctors realized Christopher also had ZSD. Patty's background as a pediatric nurse specializing in caring for medically complex children in long-term care settings has given her extensive experience, which she combines with her parenting of two children with PBD-ZSD. She has been actively involved in parent support groups since Anna's diagnosis in 1983, and starting in 2010, continuing her advocacy and support with the GFPD. She has also helped create support groups for military families with children who have special needs, though her primary focus has always been on bereaved parents, providing the support she wished she had received when her son Christopher died. Patty serves on the GFPD Conference Planning Committee and bereavement committees, dedicating countless hours to compassionate support to both bereaved and non-bereaved families. Since 2020, she has trained and served as a co-facilitator, offering peer support through virtual and in-person programs. As both a mother to an adult warrior living with PBD-ZSD and a bereaved mother, Patty brings extraordinary empathy, insight, and support to every family she meets. Patty, thank you for being here tonight to share with all of us. Now that we've introduced all of our panelists and you've heard a little about their experiences, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Megan, who's going to share some insights on grief.
Hello, everybody. So on this slide is an image of a metal sculpture of a person sitting on a bench and with their head down and a hole in their chest. And under the image is a quote that reads, "Grief is just love with no place to go." This image and the quote perfectly sums up the feeling of a bereaved parent because the price of having loved someone so deeply lives alongside the void that we feel in our hearts, minds, and day to day meaning and purpose. A formal definition that we offer for you tonight on grief is intense sorrow, especially caused by someone's death. But we believe that grief is not just sadness. It's not linear and it has no timeline. Grief actually is messy, it's everywhere, it's uncomfortable, it's physically taxing, showing up as exhaustion, tension, aches, or even unexpected illnesses. It's surprising in the sense that it can sneak up on you when you least expect it. It can be isolating. So we sometimes crave connection to people who want to just sit and be with us, or people who share the same experience of being a bereaved parent. It's contradictory at times because joy and sorrow can coexist, and it's highly individualized in that no two people grieve the same way or at the same time. Next slide, please. This next slide includes an image with two lines on it. The one on the left is a curved line that directionally moves upward and starts with denial, moves to anger and depression, and then points upward to bargaining and acceptance. This image has the words, "the roadmap you expected" above it. On the right is a squiggly line that twists and turns in a ball and says, "the road you got" above it. These images exemplify the difference between what people think of as the expectation of grief versus what actually happens in reality. Grief isn't on a time clock and is wildly messy and unpredictable. So, being patient with your grief and feeling the feels, as we like to say, when they arrive is important. Again, there's no time clock on it, and it needs to be named and felt. Now I'm going to pass it over to Jamie to share about the evolution of grief.
Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. So you can see the visual on the screen there. Maybe you've seen a similar visual before. It's one that I think many bereaved parents can connect with. In this image, the green circle represents our grief, and the jar represents us in our lives. In the first row, the green circles get smaller, as if grief itself is shrinking. In the second row, though, the grief stays the same size as the jar grows larger around it. Since my son Lincoln passed, writing has been an outlet for me, so I will take a couple minutes to read what I wrote about what this image means to me. This image is a visual metaphor that shows how grief doesn't actually shrink over time. Instead, we grow around it. Early on, grief fills everything. It can feel suffocating, like there's barely room to breathe and function. But over time, life expands. We return to work, we show up for events, we might even laugh and find joy, all while that same grief still lives inside us. It doesn't get smaller with time. We just grow, adapt, and learn to carry it differently. I think of a moment at work when a new colleague learned I'd lost my son. She said, "I never would have guessed you carry it so well." It was meant kindly, but it reflected a common misunderstanding that if you're functioning or you're smiling, your grief must have faded. I must be okay now. The reality, though, is just because we carry it well does not mean it isn't heavy. While I can now talk about Lincoln without breaking down in tears most days, that doesn't mean I don't feel the weight of his absence every day. That's why this idea is so important for those supporting bereaved parents to understand. There's often an expectation that grief fades or that it heals with time, but it really just becomes woven into who we are. Just as our love for our children is lifelong, so is the grief. So the most supportive thing people can do is allow space for both, the grief and the growth, without pressure to move on or to make our grief smaller. So as you support bereaved parents, remember this image, recognize their strength, not because the grief is gone, but because we've learned to live and love alongside it. Every day we carry both the ache of loss and the love for our children, which helps us to grow around the grief. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie and Megan, for sharing those insights about grief, the expectations versus reality, and how grief stays with us even as we grow. Hearing this is so important, both for those who are grieving and for those who love and want to support those who are grieving. On this next slide, you will see pictures of all of the parents who helped guide the creation of this new resource we're sharing tonight. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work alongside these incredible parents and just to make this resource happen. This card represents our shared commitment to helping people show up, not with perfect words, but with genuine compassion. Supporting a grieving parent can feel uncertain or overwhelming, and this webinar, along with this new resource, helps make it clearer, kinder, and more doable.
Without further ado, here's a look at the front and back of the new resource, the GFPD Care Card. You'll see that it's both a guide and a tool, something that takes the uncertainty out of helping and makes care feel more personal, thoughtful, and real. We're going to dive into the front and the back of the card in just a moment, but first, let's hear from our panelists. Why do you think having a resource like this matters, not only for families, but also for those who want to support them? Patty, would you like to share first?
Certainly, I would. This resource is very important to families of that have lost their children for many reasons. I think the most important is because in most cases, it's probably uncharted force for them. They've probably never experienced a personal loss like losing a child before. So this would give them the insight also as far as how to have their friends and family help them through this horrible, horrible time of losing their child. In most cases, they may have only ever lost a grandparent. They might be very young. In my case, I was 21 when I lost my son. So when you've never experienced this intense grief, this resource will help them to understand what's going to happen to them in a certain way and how to get their friends and family to be able to help to give their friends and families the answers to how are you and can we help. This helps them to not have to make those decisions, which is very, very hard in the very early stages of grief.
Thank you so much for sharing, Patty. Did anyone else from our panel want to share on that? Why you think this resource, matters so much? Eddie?
Yes, actually, when the unimaginable happens, when you lose a child, it's a bit of a catch-22. Your friends and family, they really do want to help. They want to be there to support you, but most often the case is they don't know how. as the family experiencing that level of loss, you realize you need that kind of help, but you usually don't know how to ask for it. Or in a lot of cases, especially in my case, you didn't even know what to ask for. This resource, this card, leads the family in making decisions that the family that's experiencing the loss may not be able to make right now. It will lead them and guide them in the direction that will most appropriately help that family. And to have this resource literally at your fingertips is just such an amazing tool that can be utilized at any time.
Thank you so much. I'm hearing a lot of how this just matters for both the bereaved parents and the people supporting the bereaved parents. Now let's take a look at the front of the card a little bit closer. So on the front of the card, we use the word care to guide people through the key ways to show up: community, assist, remember, and empathy. Each area offers a specific practical way to support a grieving parent, things you can actually do to make a difference. Under each of those sections, there are some examples of ways that you can provide support. You may also notice that in some of these areas, such as under assist, it's really customizable. That is where the bereaved parents can actually check off and let others know what's going to be most helpful for them. If they would prefer a gift card or a delivery rather than somebody doing their grocery shopping for them, they can list out ways that they can actually assist. Then under the remember area, there's a place where you can put your child's name and the birthday and death anniversary. Under each section, you will also notice that there is an other with a blank line, allowing you to write in something that may not be on there, but something that someone can do to help. All of these items were created by bereaved parents, and there was a lot of care and a lot of thought taken into account when we listed these out. And you also may notice there's a ways to contact me section along the left side. It gives parents a simple way to share their contact info. For example, if they're helping organize meals or sending cards or coordinating support, then depending on the task, they could need your mailing address or your phone number or email, but also only what you're comfortable sharing, of course. It's a small detail that really just helps in providing support. With that quick overview and this card in front of us, let's hear from our panel about this card being put to use. So to our panel, if you were a part of creating this resource, like all four of you worked so hard on this resource, and you're also a family who will be able to use it. Since each of you are at different time points since your children passed, that really speaks to how this card can be used in early days after loss or even years later. How might you suggest others approach using it, and how do you see yourself using it? And Eddie, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Well, for me and my family, we're a little over 2 years into our bereavement journey, as I like to put it. So in that time frame, we've learned to carry our grief a little bit better, and I've become much more involved with things like fundraising, advocacy, and things of that nature. For myself and families in this, for lack of a better term, stage of grief, I love the community aspect of this card. The third bullet down, especially the become involved in raising awareness, fundraising, and advocacy. When I'm doing a fundraiser or if we're doing a remembrance ceremony for Anna around her birthday, I can take this card, fill it out, and include it with any of the materials that I may be distributing. If it's a digital form, I can email this out. Again, this is just another way for my friends and family to support me by supporting the efforts to raise awareness for her syndrome. Also for me, this is also very important is the remembrance section. The remembering the birth date and the death anniversary, things like that, because it lets us know that our child's legacy will continue. This gives us yet another chance to tell others about her. And you can ask any bereaved parent; they love to talk about their children, no matter what's going on. It's a reminder that they've not been forgotten and that their fight will be continued and hopefully help others in the future. So, this is just yet another way to remind those that care for us and want to support us about the death anniversary, about their birthday or around holidays when the stress and the triggers can really kind of take you by surprise sometimes. Like it could be a week before her birthday and the grief just becomes overwhelming. This card will kind of remind them that these dates are upcoming. So, maybe ex express a little empathy for, the families that are grieving, and also, grant a little grace to those of us that have to live in this life.
Thank you for sharing the ways that you can see yourself using it. I know that's so helpful to so many. Megan, Jamie, Patty, did you want to add in about how you could suggest others approach using it, or how you see yourself using it?
And for me, I'll be on the 46th anniversary in January, but just the same thing, the remember part, I think is probably the most important to me, that my friends and family remember him, even though a lot of them never got to even meet him. But it's still nice when they say his name, as I do every day. So in Christmas time, we always he gets a special ornament every year on the tree. And it's just, that's what really, really is most important to me, is that, I will love him till the day I die. And I just want people to remember that he was a real person and he was here. And yeah, that to me is the most important part, is the remembering part.
Thank you for sharing. I know even when we were creating this card, there was lots of discussion about, how great it was to have these check marks on there, because you're able to really customize it, because someone may not want you to come in and do some of the chores. And so really just expressing that importance too of, if we check it off, we'd like the help. And if it's not checked off, please don't jump in and try to do that. I also wanted to call out and see if anyone wanted to speak to, the assist with communication. I think the assist section has the feed me and the help with chores and support my self-care and things like that. But there's that assist with communication piece, that I think is really important, that could easily be missed. And I think it's so important that you guys were able to put that on this card. Jamie, I see you nodding. Would you like to share about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think that was something that was really important to include under assist, just because I know for me, for us in those early days, it's just such a whirlwind and such like an out of body experience. And it's hard to know unless, my fellow panelists know obviously what I'm referring to, but you don't know unless you've been there. And trying to navigate like all of the logistics that go into, our children's care required so much. Like there were so many moving parts. And I know for us, we had like a medical supply company, like a respiratory oxygen company, all of his very many specialists and, team members. And there were just so many people that we felt like we needed to notify. So designating a person to kind of handle that. Like I know my mom kind of took that on, with like contacting some of like the, medical supply company, oxygen company, pharmacy, things like that, just so I didn't have to deal with like fielding all of those phone calls in the thick of those just very, very impossible first few days. It definitely helped. So I think for a bereaved parent to kind of be able to hand this full card even to, a loved one, someone that they trust, and that assist bullet being one of those things that someone can help with, is really huge.
Thank you so much. I think it's so important. I appreciate you sharing about your own experience. And Megan, did you have anything you wanted to add about the front of the card too?
Yeah, Katie, this is Megan speaking. And from a utility standpoint, the other thing that I think that often is surprising, I think, is once you're a bereaved parent, if someone has someone in their life who loses a child, they call you because they consider you to sort of be the expert. Where when you don't know what to do for someone, I get lots of phone calls saying, what do I do for this person that I love? And so just having access to this card as a bereaved parent will be helpful because you often get asked by other people, what should I do to help support someone else? And so being able to have access to it to hand it to somebody or digitally email it to somebody and explain the utility of it, I think will help open up conversation to allow people who are looking for ways to support to know how to engage in the conversation and offer the card as that door opener to start those conversations.
I think that's such a great point, and I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. And now that we've walked through what the care card looks like on the front, let's turn it over and take a look at the back side of the card. So as we turn this card over, you see the heart of what it's really about, understanding what hurts and what helps. The banner at the top reads, "Show you care, what hurts, what helps." This side offers gentle guidance about what to avoid and what to do when supporting a parent who's grieving. The Please Do Not section lists things that can unintentionally cause pain, words or actions that, while they may be well meant, they hurt. The Please Do section focuses on what truly helps: listening, remembering, showing up, and acknowledging ongoing grief. Let's go ahead and open this up again to our panel. Looking at the Please Do and Please Do Not list, could you share which item resonates most with you and why?
I think for me, oh, I'm sorry, Megan, you want to go ahead?
Go ahead, Eddie.
Okay. Well, I think for me, one of the things that really resonates with my experience as a bereaved father was part of the what hurts section. Um, the start any sentences with at least. When my daughter passed away, I had taken several weeks off of work, clearly, to grieve and, try to put my life back in some kind of order. But when I did return back to work, it was a surreal experience because, all of the people that you work with, of course, they know your situation. They're familiar with what's happened. And many of them are coming up to you to give their condolences, make sure that they know or that they are there if you need anything, and those types of interactions. But the one interaction that really, really hurt, even though I truly, truly do not believe he meant it to, was a very simple one sentence that a gentleman that I'd worked with for years said to me in the break room. And he said, "Well, at least you knew it was coming. You were able to prepare yourself." As if that's even humanly possible, as if you could prepare to lose your child. And it hit me in such a way that I truly did not know how to respond other than, yeah. And it was not only hurtful, it made me very angry. And it felt as though it had lessened, her, the fact that my child had passed, that her life was, um, even though we knew it was going to end at some point due to a terminal illness, as if her life didn't have meaning. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that is not what he intended, but that's what came across. So for me, statements like this are really going to let people know that those platitudes like that they intend to help and try to relate to you on a certain level can really cause a lot more harm than they think.
Thank you for sharing your own personal experience. And I appreciate it, and I know the audience does because we see this bullet that says, "Start any sentence with at least." And I'm sure there are many people who are going to read this and think, "What? What do you mean?" And I know for myself, I've heard so many examples from bereaved parents that I think every time I'm not going to be shocked by something that was said, and yet I am every time. So Megan, did you want to share any of the at least that happened to you, or one of your ones that really just resonates with you on this back side of the of this care card?
Sure. So for me, under the what hurts section, the very first one that says, let me know if you need anything. That one was the one that for me was the most irritating because I know it was coming from a place of compassion and true interest in helping, but especially in those beginning months, you don't even really know, as someone on the panel mentioned earlier, you don't even really know what you need. And so um, saying that was strange. And I remember a dear friend of mine one day just said to me, I'm coming to get your laundry every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Leave the basket on your front porch and I'll bring it back at a time that works for you. I remember just thinking, okay, wow, that was amazing because she did it and it worked and it was really wildly helpful. And you feel a little bit guilty about asking people for things too, even if you do know what you need, because oftentimes it just hits you that you need it. You don't know that it's going to be a particular day and time that you need it. And so you sometimes feel like you're putting on people by asking for support. So just ways of showing up and offering ways that could help is really helpful instead of asking that general question of the global of what do you need.
Thank you for sharing that, because I know we have on here, it puts pressure on the grieving person to ask for help. And I think that that's just probably resonates with a lot of people across the board on a lot of different things. And it's so easily forgotten and just so easy to just walk by and say, let me know if you need anything. So I appreciate you highlighting that one and sharing. Jamie, did you want to share about which one resonates with you?
Sure. Definitely, well, all of them, but there's a few that stand out. I think just to switch it up from what the last couple panelists have shared, I'll say the comparing losses, and I think that one can be tricky. And I get nervous even like saying it out loud because it is so hard. Like everyone's losses are valid and everyone's grief is valid, and so you don't want to ever invalidate someone else's loss. But I think there's just been a couple of times, in my grief journey in the last year and a half where if someone hears that I lost my son, and it's usually like an acquaintance or someone I don't know well, and they try to, I know it's like always good intentions, they're trying to connect, I think, and relate, but there's been a couple of instances where I can think of like someone maybe saying, like talking about the loss of their father, but this is a father who was elderly, and I don't know, it's just trying to give an example of like, it's just different. It's different when things follow, like life follows the natural order of the way things are supposed to work. And I'm not, taking that away from anyone. Like losing a father, or losing a parent is heartbreaking and terrible and obviously life-changing. But when it's, your father who is of a certain age, it's just different. And I feel like sometimes just letting someone share like their loss and just kind of listening and being there for them and not jumping to make a comparison or make a connection. I don't know. That's just my take. And I think something that a lot of bereaved parents feel happens in those kind of conversations.
It does, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. It's so important to not do that comparison ever. So thank you for sharing that. And I think, Sarah, did you want to go ahead and ask the next panel question?
Sure. Can you share why it's important to include both? Not just what helps, but also what can hurt on this card.
And I know we said we were going to, on this webinar, I think, part of this too could be, why didn't we just write everything that's helpful? And maybe you can talk to, it really is important. And I think you guys have already made so many points about this, but, we need to highlight what hurts and what helps. And maybe if you guys could just share the importance of that. Patty, if you wanted to maybe touch on that lightly.
Yeah, I think it is important because like when you read the what hurts, a lot of people think those things are what helps. They think if they say to you, oh, she's in a better place, or like what I got, oh, but you're young, you can have more children. I got that from just about everybody. And I think that that's they think that helps you. They're thinking they're trying to make you feel better by saying those things. So I think putting it on there that actually hurts a bereaved parent to hear those kind of things. And then sometimes you just don't know how to help. And so this please do, such as ask me about my comfort levels and what I want to do. Ask me to come to a party. But don't be upset if I say no. Don't be upset if I change my mind at the last minute. We've got the holidays coming, and that's another kind of hard thing for a bereaved parent. They might be in one day ready to go and be happy and let's do it, and then the day actually comes and they just can't. I experienced that when we moved to New York from Arizona after Christopher died. I volunteered to help buy the Christmas gifts for all the little kids in the squadron, and the day came when we were supposed to shop, and I couldn't do it because I should have been buying gifts for him, not all those other children. So to give these what helps and what hurts to people that are trying to be there for us, I think that really gives them a wonderful tool to be able to be more open with you, and hopefully for them to realize sometimes I have to say no and I just can't explain why. So I think that's really the benefit of these, both putting both hopes and helps and hurts on there.
Thank you for sharing that, Patty. And I think the audience agrees. I'm seeing some comments in chat about you don't know what you don't know, and another parent sharing, I am glad that the card shared what hurts. So just really appreciation to the creators, to the bereaved parents here, this panel, for making this card and making sure that we're getting this information out there. As we look at this resource card, on the front, we emphasized remembering and acknowledging those important dates year after year, that grief doesn't end after the first year. And now when we're looking at the back, we invite people to really use this card. If you look there, it says save it, share it, and come back to it regularly. There's a clear theme here that this isn't a one-time resource, but something meant to support families over time. Could any of you share your thoughts on why it's important for this kind of support to be ongoing and how you hope families might use this resource over time? So I know that we talked about, how much this was part of the discussion for our audience. When we were creating this card, I kept hearing from the parents here how much they wish they had something like this after their child died. And so how would you guys, can you speak to it being a later time frame and that this really is something that you guys can continue to still use?
Yeah, I'll just share that. I think like for any newly bereaved parent, this will be especially helpful just because finding like however you're comfortable sharing it, whether it's on social media or finding like a designated person, a family member, a loved one that you can kind of, have, be a designated sharer of it, I think would help because it just takes some of the ownership off of you, and it might prevent a lot of that let me know if you need anything, like those vague offers for help. If the appropriate person gets this into all of the hands of your family, friends, and community members who want to help but just don't know exactly how. So I think definitely in like the early days, weeks, months, this is going to be essential for bereaved parents and their loved ones and their team members to help I guess get out there. But I think over time, and that's why we say to continue to use it and refer to it, it's important to just keep it as a reference and look back and remind yourself like what is helpful, what is important, because as we've talked about throughout this webinar so far, and I can't stress enough that like just because a year or so or more has passed, it doesn't mean that the grief is gone, and it doesn't mean we don't miss our children and think about them constantly, and that we don't struggle and that we don't still need support. So this card, while there's some bullets and certain things that might apply more in those earlier weeks and months, a lot of this is relevant. Like grief is lifelong, right? So it's relevant throughout our entire lives. And if you care about a bereaved parent, then keeping this card as a little reference and referring back to it over time, I think is really important.
Thank you. I would even say it could even be where, when you have this card and you're holding on to it because a bereaved parent has given it to you, that if a year has gone by, maybe even be proactive and go back to that family and say, hey, I saved this and I know that things change. So is there anything that you want to, do you want to fill this out again? Is there some new ways that I can help you? Maybe they weren't ready for any type of advocacy like Eddie shared earlier, but now later on they are, and they want you to get more involved in things like that. So just revisiting it. I really like that. Use that card, save it, share it, refer back to it. Maybe we should have put and check back in with the parents. So again, this side of the card captures the heart of what bereaved parents want others to know, that care isn't about saying the perfect thing. It's about being present in ways that are thoughtful and real. At this point, I'd like to invite our audience to join this discussion with our panelists. You can use the Q&A button below the webinar player, and you can also drop your questions, which I saw one already did, in the chat box, whichever is easiest for you, that Q&A function or the chat. We also have on the screen a QR code that you can scan and access this new care card. We are also going to be dropping this into the chat box, a link, and we will also email this card out to everybody, and it will also be on the GFPD website.
Here's a question that just came in from the audience. I'm wondering if the panelists could speak to the period before bereavement when parents are navigating hospice or end-of-life care with their child. What guidance would you give people who want to support families during their anticipatory grief?
I know that when Anna was in hospice, and we had very similar interactions with a lot of our friends and family. They wanted to know how they could best support us. They wanted to know what they could do to help us out, during this time, because it can be one of the most stressful, one of the most heartbreaking, one of the most painful experiences one can go through. Now that I guess the best way to put it is hindsight's 2020. One of the best things you can do is sometimes it's better to just act. I've shared a couple of times on Facebook, and I've also brought this up in a lot of conversations. Something that's coined is like grief groceries. When you're caring for a child 24/7, or you're nearing that end of life phase of their care, a lot of the things that you do in everyday activity is just miles from your thought process. You're not worried about dinner. You're not worried about dishes. You're not worried about having to run to the store and do this and do that, because your entire world is your child, and you're putting everything you've got into your child. Some of the best ways we were supported is a lot of our friends and family ordered grocery deliveries. They didn't ask us; they just ordered us ready to heat meals, quick snacks, energy drinks, coffee, things that that someone would use in every day. But those are the things that are the furthest from our minds at the time. I had family show up at my house and literally just knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we're here to clean your house. I'm here to vacuum. I'm here to do the dishes. I'm here to take those everyday stressors off of you so that you can focus on caring for your child." The whole point of this is the actions, not having to go to the family that's experiencing this and asking them what they need, because to be perfectly honest, they don't know, and they don't know how to answer that. And sometimes they can feel guilty for asking for that kind of help, even though it's going to bring a huge amount of relief to that family. So being proactive in some of the everyday activities. Hey, I'm here to walk the dog. Hey, I'm here to clean out your cat's litter box, things like that. It's those little everyday things that would mean the absolute world to any family who's under this much stress and pressure.
Thank you for answering that, Eddie. And I think, you know, for the questions coming in like that before, beforehand and leading up when you're on hospice and end of life care, those questions that have come in, I just want to remind everyone that this is actually part 2 of a series. So, last November, for our Caregiver Awareness Month, we did launch a help card. So this is part 2. The GFPD is really trying to make sure that we provide resources created by parents to help others. So know that there's more than one resource out there if you're looking for something prior to. There's also a question that came in. As the holidays approach, what advice would you give to friends and family on how to best support parents who are grieving a loss? And Jamie, I see you nodding. Did you want to maybe speak to that?
Sure. I would say do something to honor their child. Like take the initiative to remember, the bereaved parent's child, and to just keep them, in your present, to keep them present at the holiday season. I think bereaved parents just feel this responsibility to do everything we can to like keep our children alive and keep their memories alive. And I think as time goes on, especially as time goes on, that burden, like really, not that it's a burden, but that it really falls on us because it feels like the people around you start to forget, even if that's not true. As time passes, people might talk about your child less and bring them up less. So I just think, especially around the holidays when it's just such a heavy time for us, like we're missing our children always, every day, but the holidays are really hard. It's such a celebratory, cheerful time, and we just have like this huge missing piece. So just finding a way to involve us and our children, and just keep them a part of the traditions, I think is really special. When someone like takes the initiative to do something without you feeling like you have to, as the bereaved parent, always be like the coordinator and the one planning the things. So.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to add in, as I know the holidays are approaching very quickly?
Yeah, I think what Jamie said is very important to include the child in some of the activities. If there's tears, there's tears. And also on the other hand, if you are having a big gathering and you invite the parents to come and they say yes, but then on that day, they really don't feel like they can, don't try to, like guilt them into coming. Like, oh, come on, everybody's going to miss you. You'll be fine. Just say, okay, when you're ready, if you do want to drop by, drop by. But don't pressure them that they should attend simply because, they'll be okay. So I think that's really can be hard on parents. They feel like they have to go, but then if in their heart they really don't feel up to it, don't pressure them to be there. But a little ornament every year. My mom put a stocking up for Christopher every single year, and there was an ornament from grandma on the tree every year. So and I carried that on even after her passing. So and we actually leave him up all year. So he's here all the time. So that's but yeah, it's just kind of letting them make the decisions or not, but yeah, don't pressure them if they don't feel like being in the celebration.
Thank you for sharing that your insight and your experiences. We have a really great question that kind of goes back to the back of the card. Now that we've shared what not to say and things that are hurtful, someone asked if you've already said one of those things. Is it better to apologize and attempt to repair that mistake, or is it better just to leave it in the past? Megan is smiling, so I'm going to call on you.
How could you tell I want that one? I want that question. I would always say that in life, no matter what the situation is, when we know better, we do better. And so as you learn about how best to support people who are grieving, if you've learned that maybe you did something that might not have been the best approach, I just think you could say, I went to this training and I learned some really important things from some bereaved parents. And I just want to say, when you were originally grieving, and I wasn't so sure what to say, that maybe I didn't say things just right, but I was doing it out of love. So I would honor it.
Thank you. I think that's great advice. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that, because that can be awkward too. I agree with all the advice Megan gave, but I just we have to acknowledge that that's hard to admit when you, hey, I messed up and I said something that I'm realizing now, was hurtful, and a great opportunity to take this card to that person and say, I want to do better. How can I help? So we have some great comments in the chat as well that I'm taking a look at. That holiday season definitely came up in the Q&A, as well as in the chat. And we have someone who's asking if you would anybody be willing to talk a little bit about dealing with the guilt of moving on?
I think I can kind of speak to that a little bit. When after Anna had passed away, and some time had gone on, I was at a family event, and for the first time in a very long time, to me, it's what seemed like an eternity. Um, I caught myself having a good time. I was enjoying the conversations that I was having. I was at a family barbecue. There was a lot of good food. A lot of friends and family had gathered, and I caught myself having a good time. And I got to tell you, that was like a sucker punch, and I did not see that coming. I had been in a place of a very dark place for quite a long time. And when I caught myself having fun and enjoying myself, I had this overwhelming cloud of guilt come over me, because now I'm asking myself, I'm saying, hey, did I forget about her? Did I forget about what happened? And am I dishonoring her by living my life? And that really hit me, and that really hit me hard. And the more that I thought about it, the more that, I've wrestled back and forth with this feeling of guilt, this feeling of I can't allow myself to forget her. I can't allow this kind of thing to happen. I spoke to, some very close friends of mine, and brought this up because they had experienced something similar. And they reminded me that, just like in some of the images in this webinar, your love for your child, your grief doesn't change. Your life just grows around it. And to bring up another point from earlier in the webinar, it can be very confusing, because joy and sadness can be present at the exact same time. And that is a concept that can be extremely difficult to wrap your head around, and let alone accept. And the more that we talked about it, and the more I thought about it, I know now that just because I have good days and I'm, enjoying myself at any given moment, does not lessen how I felt about Anna. It does not lessen her legacy. It does not lessen the fact that she's no longer here. That is something that I will carry with me until the day that I die. And someone told me one sentence, and it was like, do you honestly believe that if Anna Violet were here, she would never want you to enjoy yourself again because she's not here with you? And I don't believe she would. She loved to giggle. She loved to have fun. She loved to play. She loved to swim. And in my own way, I've kind of accepted the fact that by living my life as best as I can, in my own way, I'm honoring that part of her memory of her giggling in the wind, or her splashing around in the pool. So, it's a double-edged sword for sure. But you also have to understand that because sadness and joy can happen at the exact same time, because you're experiencing one does not lessen the other. And that is a part of you that will always be there. So take the good days as they come. Acknowledge the bad days. Those will always come too, no matter how long it's been. But take the good days as they come and try to live them as if you were living them to honor their memory, not so much forget about it.
Thank you, Eddie. We're already almost at an hour and I can't believe it. There's just been such rich, important discussion. I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get to all of the great questions. It's making me think we could easily extend this into another conversation on another date because this is just such an important conversation that we're having. Um, I want to take a moment to recognize our panel, as well as, you know, Margaret, who did the design and layout, but just all of you who took the time um, to create this card. I want to thank Sarah for co-moderating with me this evening. Just thank you for all your time, energy, experience, and heart that you poured into creating this card. Your contributions have made this new resource meaningful, practical, and filled with compassion. I've been reading the comments in the chat. They're still coming in, and I love that. I'm going to make sure that the chat is shared with the panelists to know how important and valuable you sharing was. Just really grateful for all of you, and know that this is going to make a difference. And as we close today's webinar, you're going to see this candle on the screen. It's displayed in memory of Anna Violet, of Ben, Lincoln, Christopher, and all children who have passed, and in honor of all who love them. We want to thank you for being part of this GFPD webinar, for taking the time to learn, reflect, and consider the many ways you can support bereaved parents. Please make sure that you are also signed up for the top 3 email newsletter, because that's how you're going to stay informed about these amazing new resources, events like this. We will be sending out a survey, and when I send that out, know that I will send a link so that everybody that participated tonight will have access to this amazing new resource that these parents that you see tonight created. Thank you again for being here, for listening, and for committing to showing up with care and compassion for families who are grieving. Good night.